My fiancé's mom tried to replace me with her ex, so I left quietly. But then they found out I was rich and too late to apologize. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I thought I'd finally found my forever. I grew up in a small apartment on the edge of town, the kind where the walls were thin enough to hear your neighbors fighting, and the heater rattled every winter. My parents split when I was 12, and since then, I've lived with this quiet obsession to build something stable, a life that didn't collapse at the first argument. So I worked. Hard. Long nights studying computer science, coding on borrowed laptops, freelancing just to pay for my own degree. By the time I turned 27, I had a steady job as a software engineer, a little apartment, and a peace I'd fought for tooth and nail. Then I met Claire. It was at a charity event my company sponsored. She was volunteering, handing out flyers with this kind of effortless warmth that drew people in. I remember spilling coffee on myself mid-conversation, and she just laughed. Not mockingly, but like she genuinely found it endearing. She had that kind of laughter that made you want to earn it again. We started seeing each other. Coffee dates turned into late-night calls. Calls turned into weekends together. She came from a world I didn't belong to. Family brunches at country clubs, vacations that cost more than my annual rent. But she never made me feel small. She'd touch my hand and say, "My parents will love you. You're grounded." Something they've forgotten. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think love could level the differences between us, that sincerity could outshine money, that effort could outvalue status. So when she invited me to meet her parents, I spent hours ironing a shirt I could barely afford and rehearsing small talk in front of the mirror. I told myself this was the next chapter, the start of building the family I never had. I didn't realize that to her mother, I was never the right man, just a placeholder. The night I met Claire's parents, I must have checked my reflection in the car window a dozen times before knocking on their door. Their house looked like it belonged in a magazine. Spotless white pillars, a stone path lined with trimmed hedges, and the faint smell of jasmine from the garden. I remember thinking, this is what success smells like. Her father, Daniel, greeted me with a firm handshake, polite but distant, the kind of man who smiled without warmth. But her mother, Vivian, she had this perfectly practiced charm, the kind that felt like a performance. She kissed Claire on the cheek, then looked me up and down like she was measuring the cost of my shoes. "Oh, so you're the software engineer," she said, smiling tightly. "That's nice. It must be so fulfilling to do what you love, even if it doesn't make much." I tried to laugh it off. Claire squeezed my hand under the table as we sat for dinner. A dining room too big for 4 people, silverware arranged like a test. I tried to make conversation about work, travel, anything. But every time I spoke, Vivian found a way to compare me to someone else. "Claire's ex, David, is in finance," she said casually while passing the salad. "He just bought a property in Aspen. You'd like him. Very ambitious." The air went still. Claire tensed, whispering, "Mom, please." But Vivian just smiled at me as if to say, "See, this is the standard." Her father barely intervened. He just kept sipping his wine, eyes down, detached. I pushed through the discomfort, answering politely, pretending not to notice the digs hidden in her compliments. When dessert came, Vivian said, "You're a hard worker. That's admirable for your background." My background. Like I was an art project her daughter picked up from a thrift store. As we left, Claire apologized, her voice trembling. "She just takes time to warm up." I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said I understood. But inside, something cold began to form. I told myself I could win them over. I didn't realize I was already being measured against someone they still wished was sitting at that table. After that dinner, I convinced myself things would get better. I kept showing up. Sunday brunches, family birthdays, casual drop-ins at her parents' house. I thought consistency would soften Vivian's edges. Instead, it only seemed to sharpen them. She had this way of disguising insults as conversation. "You're very humble," she'd say, sipping her tea. "It's refreshing to see someone so simple." Or, "Claire, dear, maybe don't post too many photos in his apartment. People might get the wrong idea about how you're living." Her words always carried the same tone. Polite on the surface, poisonous underneath. One night we were having dinner at Claire's place, just the two of us, when her phone buzzed with a text. I caught a glimpse of the name before she flipped it face down. David. "Why is he still texting you?" I asked, trying to sound calm. She sighed. "My mom keeps in touch with him. He checks in sometimes. It's nothing." "Your mom keeps in touch with your ex," I said, the disbelief sharper than I intended. She winced. "She thinks he's safe, familiar. Please don't make this a thing." I wanted to drop it, but something about the way she avoided my eyes burned in my chest. Later that week, Vivian called to invite us to a charity dinner. She added, "Oh, and David will be there too. It's just business." I felt my stomach twist. But I went. Because I loved Claire. Because I still believed I could prove myself worthy of her world. That night, David greeted everyone like he owned the room. Tailored suit, confident grin, Vivian glowing beside him like a proud mother. He looked at me once, nodded politely, then turned back to her like I wasn't even there. And maybe, to them, I wasn't. As we drove home, Claire was quiet. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it away, pretending to adjust her seatbelt. I didn't say anything. I just stared out the window, realizing something had shifted. The kind of shift you can't undo. I was engaged to the woman I loved, but I was starting to feel like an intruder in her life. 2 weeks later, Vivian invited us to what she called an intimate engagement celebration. I didn't want to go, but Claire insisted. "She's trying," she said, eyes pleading. I gave in, even though my gut screamed otherwise. Their house glowed that night, gold light spilling from chandeliers, laughter echoing through every corner. The guests were all Vivian's friends, not ours, lawyers, brokers, old money types who talked like they were reading stock reports. When we walked in, all eyes subtly drifted to my off-rack suit. Vivian swept toward us, all smiles and perfume, clinking her wine glass against mine. "There's our happy couple," she sang. "Claire, darling, doesn't he look comfortable?" People chuckled softly. Claire didn't. The entire night felt choreographed. Vivian keeping me close enough to play the role, but far enough to remind me I didn't belong. I tried to stay polite, shaking hands, smiling through the invisible wall between us. Then, during a lull in the noise, I stepped outside for air. The backyard was lit with string lights, a faint jazz tune drifting through the open doors. That's when I heard them. Vivian's voice, low but sharp. "She'll come to her senses, David. She's just confused. He's not her future. You are." David's voice followed, amused. "You think she'll leave him?" "She always does the right thing when she realizes what's beneath her," Vivian said, her tone smug. "Give it time." I froze behind the hedge, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My fiancée's mother, plotting my replacement with her ex. I slipped back inside quietly, forcing a smile for the rest of the night, pretending nothing had happened. Claire noticed the silence in the car ride home. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I wanted to tell her everything I'd heard, but I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her love was already bending under her mother's pressure. So I just said, "I'm fine," but I wasn't. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just fighting for her. I was fighting against them, and I had no idea that battle had already started without me. After that night, something changed in Claire. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like erosion. Little things, small enough to question, big enough to hurt. She stopped calling during lunch breaks. Our nightly video chats turned into quick check-ins. Whenever I'd ask how her day was, she'd shrug and say, "Fine," before disappearing into her phone. I'd catch glimpses of texts from her mother, endless message threads filled with photos of parties, homes, and, sometimes, David. Vivian's influence crept into our relationship like mold. Quiet, constant, impossible to scrub out. One evening, I came home early with takeout from her favorite Thai place. She barely looked up from her laptop. "You didn't have to," she said flatly. "I wanted to," I replied, setting the food down. "We haven't really spent time together lately," she sighed. Can you not make everything so heavy? I'm tired. Her tone hit harder than I expected. I sat across from her, staring at the woman who once told me she felt safest in my arms. Now she looked at me like I was a burden. Later that night, while she showered, her phone buzzed. A message preview lit up the screen. Mom, he's too sensitive. I told you this would happen. I locked the phone and stepped onto the balcony, the city lights blurring beneath my eyes. Sensitive. That word had followed me all my life. Teachers, friends, my own father. But hearing it again, filtered through Claire's mother, made something inside me break quietly. The next morning, I tried to talk about it. Claire, do you still want this? Us? She hesitated. I don't know. Maybe we moved too fast. There it was. Doubt. Planted by someone who smiled at me over dinner and called me hardworking. Still, I refused to give up. I thought maybe proposing an earlier wedding date could remind her of what we were fighting for. Love, commitment, something pure. I didn't realize I was about to walk straight into a trap that would shatter the illusion of everything I thought we had. It was a Sunday morning. Quiet. The kind where the world feels still before it starts spinning. Claire was in the shower, humming faintly through the door, and I was folding laundry in the bedroom. That's when I noticed an envelope half tucked beneath a pile of papers on her dresser. Heavy, cream cardstock, elegant font pressed in gold. My first thought was that it was another one of Vivian's event invites, but then I read the first line. You are cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Claire Williams and David Hart. My vision tunneled. The words didn't make sense, like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. The date was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks. When Claire walked out of the bathroom, towel around her hair, I just held up the envelope. What is this? Her face drained of color. Oh my God, I didn't... She fumbled for words. It's just something my mom had made up, as a joke. She showed me and I told her it wasn't funny. A joke? I asked quietly. It looks pretty official for a joke. She's obsessed with him, okay? I told her to stop. I don't even talk to David anymore. But I wasn't convinced. The fonts, the venue, the RSVP email, her mother's email. I could barely breathe. That night, after Claire fell asleep, I sat in the living room, scrolling through her mother's social media. That's when I saw a new post from Vivian. Some matches are made to be rekindled. Love always finds its way back. The photo attached. A dinner table. Vivian, David, and Claire sitting together. Claire wasn't smiling, but she wasn't leaving either. My stomach dropped. She'd told me she was at a work dinner that night. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't an accident. Vivian wasn't just trying to sabotage us. She was rebuilding her daughter's old relationship right in front of me. And Claire was letting her. I stared at that fake invitation until the ink blurred with my tears. For the first time, I realized I wasn't losing Claire to another man. I was losing her to her mother. After finding that invitation, something inside me went quiet. Not angry, just hollow. I stopped arguing, stopped defending myself, stopped trying to prove that I was worthy of her family. Instead, I watched, observed, and what I saw broke me in slow motion. Claire started spending more nights at her mom's. When I'd ask if she wanted me to come along, she'd give that tired half-smile. It's just easier if I go alone. Mom's been stressed. But her voice was colder now, practiced like she'd rehearsed the lines. One night I called her at 9 p.m. No answer. At 10, nothing. At midnight, she finally texted, "Sorry, Mom needed to talk. Going to sleep here tonight." I stared at the message, wondering if she still remembered the promise she'd once made. I'll never let her come between us. A few days later, Vivian messaged me herself. Just one line. David's back in town. Don't embarrass yourself by showing up uninvited. I read it 3 times before the meaning hit me. It wasn't a warning. It was a declaration that I was being phased out, erased quietly. When Claire came over the next morning, I tried one last time to reach her. "Claire," I said, "if you want to end this, just say it. Don't let your mom do it for you." She looked at me for a long time. Her eyes softened for a second. a flicker of the woman I loved. Then she whispered, "Maybe we both need space." And that was it. No fight, no tears, just silence. The kind that doesn't echo, because there's nothing left to bounce off of. I watched her walk out of my apartment with the same overnight bag she used to bring when she was happy, except this time it looked heavier, maybe because she was carrying every unspoken word between us. I didn't chase her. I just sat there, realizing the truth. She hadn't broken up with me. She'd just stopped being mine long before she walked out that door. A week passed. Then another. No calls, no texts. I told myself she just needed space, that she'd come back once her mother's influence faded. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. That's what heartbreak does. It keeps you bargaining with ghosts. It was a Friday night when I finally decided to stop waiting. I drove to her parents' house, the place where everything always seemed to happen behind closed doors. The gate was open. Lights glowed softly through the dining room windows. I hesitated at the front door but then heard laughter. Hers? I stepped closer, heart pounding. Through the window, I saw them. Vivian, David, and Claire sitting around the table. Vivian was pouring wine, David was leaning in too close, and Claire, she wasn't pushing him away. She wasn't smiling either, just staring blankly into her glass as her mother laughed. Vivian said something. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the smirk. Then she placed her hand on David's and said, "You see, some things are meant to be fixed, not replaced." Claire looked up at her mother, then at David, and for the briefest second her eyes flickered toward the window. I don't know if she saw me or just sensed me there, but either way, she didn't move. She didn't come after me. She didn't say a word. I walked back to my car, every step heavier than the last. I sat there for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, unable to start the engine. The air smelled like wet leaves and something burning far away, or maybe that was just my chest. When I got home, I didn't break anything. I didn't scream or cry. I just packed the small things she'd left behind, her mug, her scarf, a framed photo from our trip, and placed them in a box. Then I wrote her a letter, not to accuse, not to plead, just to say thank you for the good days and goodbye for the rest. No drama, no closure, just silence. My final gift to a woman who'd already chosen her mother's voice over mine. That night, I turned off my phone, locked the door, and let the quiet swallow me whole. Because that's when I finally understood. I hadn't just lost her. I'd lost the version of myself who still believed love could fix anything. After that night, I disappeared. Not dramatically, just quietly, piece by piece. I left the apartment we'd shared memories in, sublet it to a college kid, and moved into a small studio across the city. No furniture except a desk, a mattress on the floor, and my laptop. I told no one where I went, deleted social media, changed my number, quit the job everyone thought defined me. People assumed I'd crashed after the breakup. Maybe I did, just not in the way they thought. I wasn't destroyed. I was rebuilding. See, before all of this, I'd been working on a side project, a sustainability-focused tech startup I never talked much about. I'd built the prototype years ago, but shelved it when life got busy. After Claire, after her mother, I dove into it like a man possessed. Coding became therapy. Every keystroke was a reminder that my worth didn't depend on anyone's approval. I worked through nights, slept through days, and lived off instant noodles and coffee. Slowly, something started to grow. Investors noticed. A few small grants turned into contracts. One morning, I woke up to an email from a major green tech fund. They wanted to buy in. By the end of that year, I wasn't just surviving. I was leading a company. Quietly, no press, no publicity. I wanted peace more than praise. Meanwhile, mutual friends still mentioned Claire in whispers. "She and her mom think you moved overseas," one said. They said it was for a job you couldn't handle. I just smiled. Let them believe I'd vanished in defeat. Because while they were gossiping about my downfall, I was in boardrooms signing contracts that would change my life forever. But I didn't do it for revenge. Not yet. I did it to prove something to myself. that even when people tried to erase me, I could rewrite my own story in silence. And the best part? Silence has a way of echoing the loudest when the time finally comes to break it. 2 years passed. 2 long, quiet years that reshaped everything about me. My company had grown faster than I ever imagined. From a single laptop in a dim studio to a multi-million-dollar green tech firm. I was still the same man inside, just quieter, sharper, less willing to explain myself. Then one day, an invitation landed in my inbox. A major business gala, the Hartwell Environmental Awards. I laughed when I saw the sponsor list. One of the lead donors was Hartwell Capital, owned by none other than David Hart. It felt like the universe had written a perfect full circle. I didn't plan to attend at first. I hated crowds, the fake smiles, the buzz of ego that filled those rooms. But something in me shifted. Not revenge, not even curiosity, just the need to stand where I once felt small and realize I didn't owe anyone that feeling anymore. The night of the gala, I wore a tailored black suit, the kind Vivian used to say wasn't my style. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, glasses clinking, laughter echoing off marble floors. When I walked in, heads turned. Not because I was famous, but because confidence has a gravity that wealth can't fake. I spotted them near the center of the room. Vivian, radiant as ever, and Claire beside her in a navy dress, looking older, thinner, quieter. David stood with them, laughing with that same self-assured smirk. I took my seat at the front as they called the keynote speaker. The room hushed when the host announced my name. Please welcome the CEO of EcoNext Innovations, Mr. Narrator's name. I walked on stage. The applause felt distant. I was too focused on the 3 faces in the crowd that went pale in unison. Claire's glass slipped slightly in her hand. Vivian froze mid-smile. David's jaw clenched. I smiled calmly, adjusted the mic, and began my speech. Integrity, I said, is doing the right thing even when no one is watching, especially when they doubt you're capable of it. Every word after that wasn't just for the audience. It was for them. And judging by their faces, they knew it. The moment my speech ended, the applause thundered through the ballroom, but I didn't hear it. I could only see them. Vivian stood frozen, one manicured hand gripping her clutch like it might anchor her. David tried to smile through gritted teeth, that trademark confidence draining from his face. And Claire, she just stared at me, tears welling, like she was seeing a ghost who'd learned how to breathe fire. After the event, people crowded around. Investors, journalists, executives wanting to shake my hand. I gave polite smiles, but my eyes kept drifting toward the corner of the room, where Claire stood motionless, torn between pride and regret. Eventually, she approached. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. Her voice trembled. We stepped into the hallway outside the ballroom, the hum of the crowd fading behind us. Up close, she looked different. Older, but not in years. In weight. "You look amazing," she said. "I didn't know you." "Of course you didn't," I interrupted gently. "You never asked." She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, okay? For everything. I should have fought harder. I let her control you." I finished for her. "You didn't let her. You chose it." Her eyes filled, but she didn't deny it. Behind her, Vivian appeared, trying to mask her discomfort with her signature false warmth. "Well, look at you," she said brightly. "We're so proud of how far you've come. We always knew you'd—" "Stop," I said, turning toward her. My tone was calm, almost kind. "You don't get to rewrite the story now, Vivian." The air between us turned heavy, thick with the ghosts of every humiliation, every manipulation. Claire whispered, "Do you ever think about us?" I looked her in the eye and said, "Sometimes, but not the way you want me to." She flinched. "What do you mean?" "I don't miss you," I said quietly. "I miss who I thought you were." Vivian opened her mouth to say something, but I was already walking away, leaving them standing in a hallway full of echoes, realizing too late that the man they once dismissed had become someone they could never reach again. I didn't look back that night. As I stepped out into the cold air, the city lights felt softer, calmer, like they were finally reflecting the peace I'd spent years chasing. My driver asked if I wanted to head straight home, but I told him to take the long route. I wanted to see the skyline one more time, the same skyline I used to stare at from my tiny apartment window when I felt like nothing. It hit me how full circle everything had come. 2 years ago, I was standing outside their house, watching them laugh while my world fell apart. Now, I was the one laughing quietly, not out of spite, but because the silence finally belonged to me. In the weeks that followed, Claire reached out once more. A long message, part apology, part nostalgia. She said she left David, that she realized too late what her mother had done. I read it twice, then archived it without replying. There was nothing left to say. Forgiveness doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes it's just the absence of anger. Vivian, on the other hand, made one last attempt. An email dressed in politeness. "You've become such a success," she wrote. "Perhaps we could all meet for dinner, for old time's sake." I never answered that one either. Instead, I made a quiet donation to a women's tech education charity, in Claire's name. No announcement, no publicity. Just an act that closed the loop in the same silence where it all began. I've learned that real revenge isn't about humiliation or payback. It's about evolution. Becoming so untouchable that even those who tried to break you can't reach the person you've become. Now, when people ask about my past, I just smile and say, I learned the difference between love and possession. Because sometimes, the sweetest closure isn't watching them regret losing you, it's realizing you no longer need them to. That's the quietest revenge of all.